new ships, power play rework, and a few other bits coming to Elite Dangerous in 2024. But as usual, Frontier, the developers, and their mouthpieces barely have anything to say about them, in some odd attempt to blue ball and hype build, which, well, let's be frank, they've been laughably bad at since the very start. So, I figured, well, it's high time for me to dip my toes back into the game files and take a look at what I can see behind the scenes, what's hiding and what's coming. In fact, I'll try to compile everything that has been leaked past and present, materials, tools, how to use them, and to find them, so that you too can use this knowledge, rather than just claiming shit without any backing. Of course, if you manage to find something interesting and get your hands on some super secret data, of course, do email me. Like other anonymous sources, past and present, I was made sure to be discreet and of course publish this information for everyone to enjoy. Oh, and of course, biggest thanks to my patrons and channel members that allow me to afford not to pull any punches, just to stay friendly with some petty assholes in PR departments. So thanks to all who show some love and give a fuck by tossing a buck. Oh, and did you know there's a free follower option there? Well, in any case, let's get into the juicy details. Of course, most of today's data is derived from dump data, literally the information that the game pushes into your PC's RAM. All you do is just read the information in a concise way. No reverse engineering in any case. In fact, it's no different than reading game files in the folder. But anyways, what did I find? Starting off with a base building. A little bit of history for this Leaky feature comes from the year before the Black Plague, the 2019. On 4chan, an anonymous user posts a rather curious message that even back then, I and my peers reported on. I'll leave all the leak videos in the description so you can look them up, but the interesting thing about this little thing was every single thing about it was 100% correct. Sure, it took about 3 more years for the space legs internally called Project Watson and later officially dubbed Odyssey to release, but to this day this one leak has grown even more interesting. See, everything in it was 100% accurate, except for Thargoids in flesh, which arguably you can say we got, but let's be frank, it most likely implies actual creatures, not reskin hover drones. And base building. Now, originally, when Odyssey launched, I assumed that due to performance issues, incompetence, and other issues within Frontier, base building was real, sure, but it ended up on cutting room floor, as it were, since even today, Odyssey runs subpar, and yes, I can fucking prove it! Anyways, my best guess was that base building, if delayed, would come about a year after Odyssey's release, or not at all. Well, guess sunk cost makes fools of us all. For 2024, Frontier in their new streaming show Unlocked mentioned this.
There's also another feature coming, and this is a new feature. This isn't a rework, this is a brand new feature coming to Elite Dangerous. It's super cool. I had no idea what they were doing with it until I sat through a few months back now and saw the full scope of what they were doing with it, and it's really
And as it happens, delving into the Elite Dangerous dump data, there are references to base building as a string. See, a few years back I did examine this and tried searching for base building references, and while there were some snippets coming up, they were, well, not quite conclusive. Though there have been some additional references being added around update 15. So yeah, it's kinda old, but not really. As for the illustrious feature and what it could be, well, it's hard to say. Though, if it has anything like a fucking fleet carrier upkeep or renting system that's basically one giant manipulative ticking clock, Frontier devs can go fuck right off with this shit. But yeah, anyways, it's more than likely that that's the big feature that they didn't talk about, because of course they wouldn't. Ugh. Now, ever since the Odyssey launch, in dump data there's also something listed as Thargoid Soldier as a reference, and frankly, it was expected to see something a lot sooner. But again, delays, incompetence, and other factors have pushed this reveal back a lot. Instead, we had to suffice with, well, frankly, very poorly coded reskins of Scavengers, which themselves were reskins of Horizon's human skimmer drones. But who knows, maybe we'll get to see some Thargoids and how they look before the game closes its servers. But make no mistake, just because there are references to certain things in dump data does not mean the feature will become a reality. Case in point, Comets. These astronomical features were once planned in the early days of the game, but unlike Dredger megaship that got added, then later removed, then years later re-added again, Comets are an old leftover. Sad, but that's how it's been for years. Very much like the Panther Clipper, a ship from previous Elite's games that's touted as the most massivest thing in the galaxy. Well, that is right after your mom. This ship even had some concept art, even some cockpit models leaked a while back. But like Comets, it's doubtful it will ever become a reality, despite the 3 more unnamed ships promised for the 2024. Though it is interesting that some script kiddie dildos, besides cheating in the game, managed to pull a few ship models that we don't recognize in live game environment. Hence the Mamba light. Now these pictures appeared a while back. Frankly, it's an untextured model of Mamba itself with a spoofed name. Since in dump data there's really no reference or anything, so I'm only left to conclude it's not a real thing, but who knows. But speaking of real features, remember that Scorpion SRV, which TheYamiks was provided by an anonymous source with actual footage months before its reveal? Well, it's not the only SRV in the game files. I already reported on this, but there is something called Rhino, and maybe something called SRV Mark II. Though in the case of SRV2, it's likely just like the quote-unquote test buggy reference, a basic test vehicle. Rhino, though, was a new reference when Odyssey launched, and frankly, I'm surprised that developers are sitting on this one for so long. But if there's no real gameplay to support it, I guess what's the point to release it? And speaking of real new additions, while there are no references to anything like Python Mark II anywhere in the game files, a name popped up that I had not seen anyone mention: Mammoth. In dump data, it's listed around the ships, and unlike Scorpion references, it also has different structure too. So my best guess is that it's a ship, not an SRV. Under which case, if anyone can rip out some interesting game files about it and spawn it maybe, well, contact me, please. Email down below. Oh, but speaking of ships, and more likely red herrings, there were some oddities in the ship's listing. For example, Clipper in the game files aren't really mentioned as a Clipper, it's an Empire Trader or Imperial Trader. Same goes with Independent Trader, which is most likely the case of Type 6 or Type 7. Similarly, there are several Type X references with Type X2, Type X3 afterwards. But just like with Type 9 Military, I assume it's just a paint job variant. And the same goes with Federal Dropship Mark II. Seems that's most likely the internal way of the drop baby's name. Do you know what's funny? Taxis, and not just paint jobs. Yes, we got a few more taxi ship variants listed in the game files like Vulture, Viper, Cobra 4, and Diamondback. Frankly, it's still funny that developers explicitly promised more taxi variants, while we still haven't received any. Yay, go Frontier! But now, onto the Thargoid crap, because of course we needed more of it, right? Anyways, aside from a bunch of Thargoid War references and now finally fulfilled Titan arrival that I predicted long ago, and caustic clouds and blah blah blah, there seemed to be not that much left for our aliens to reveal. Still, there were a few new additions. Now back in the day, and I mean Horizons days before Odyssey, I spotted references to something called Glaive. Now that it has come out, Glaive and Scythe are present in game and you can fight them near Titan and inside Thargoid space. Well, they're annoying basically. What, as far as I'm aware, is not in the game is something called Tachi. Clearly it's listed there as a variant of a Glaive, but still, it's something we haven't seen, I guess. Which only leaves one thing of the Thargoids back catalog not revealed: the actual Thargoid models. A little while back, you see, I made my Leaky compilations. Out of nowhere, an anonymous source actually shared these two models of Thargoids. Before my reveal, all the community had was some shitty pictures. But the great TheYamiks said, well, fuck it, and released these models out for the public. In fact, I'll link down below where you can download and play with them yourself, since I don't really feel like uploading them again. Whatever. Yeah, I know I'm lazy, but anyways, there you go. But seriously, these are really cool looking models, and if Odyssey hadn't happened, or at least the version of it hasn't, well, again, there was internal Frontier shuffling, what it does, that basically screwed up Horizons. Basically, these models, if it was supposed to happen, they would have come out at the end of Horizons as originally planned. Oh, and if you didn't know, yeah, also internally space slugs, and that means also ship interiors, would have happened, and that would also come out at the end of Horizons. See, this little nugget I heard from a few different sources, again trying to keep them anonymous and all that stuff, but it kinda also was hinted in 2014 and later with Horizon promo pieces back in the day in the public side.
What types of SRV will be released over the course of Season 2? And don't worry if you can't say anything.
So I think I don't know offhand. The first variants will actually be quite similar to the SRV, but just variants of it, and there will be others to come down the line.
That's really cool. Will they...
Clearly, shit did not pan out as they hoped, so a lot of was shuffled and we got Odyssey, oh god. Anyways, these were officially confirmed as the real in-production models by Frontier back when I leaked them. However, it was also noted that those were all 2004, unindicative of the future thing, this. As for whatever turns up to be the new Thargoid on-foot enemies beyond the stupid flying aim-botting drones, well, with Odyssey launching, dump data started including something called Thargoid Soldier, as I mentioned before, and in recent times, caustic damage has been added as a reference to on-foot suit protections and properties, so maybe something is coming. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I swear, if Frontier pulls a cop-out and uses just zombified humans as the Thargoid, I will murder a bitch! Oh, and speaking of some old references, back in the day, Thargoids were not named Thargoids in the game's data files. They were called unknown sorcerers and what else. Now, there is something called Unknown Capital Ship. It's an old reference, but wouldn't it have been fun to see actually human capital ships battling out Titan or something? We all can dream, I guess, since it is an old reference and very unlikely that it's gonna happen. Yeah. Then we have another bunch of old references pertaining to Meta-Alloy Hull Reinforcements Mark II, as well as anti-caustic shields, as well as anti-caustic sensors. Though, as I was looking through the lists, I ended up realizing there are more than 4 FPS suits listed. The flight suit being the default one, exploration, utility, and tactical. Sure, but there's also one more called specialist suit. Maybe this is the anti-caustic version? Well, anyways. But what about the Guardians, the malformed second alien species? Do they get something? Well, apparently in dump data there's some references to something that might be some kind of AI entity, but it's too inconclusive to say, so I'm not gonna bother. Anyways, some references to pertaining to ancient stuff also comes up. Ancient engines, ancient whatnot else, and ancient blah blah. It's basically a renamed old Guardian crap from way back when. Oh, and speaking of some really old crap, well, there is something called Mining Ship Launched Fighter. However, Mining Ship is a rather old reference, as I said, and it's about the same as Panther Clipper. Sure, it's there, but it's no guarantee it's gonna happen. Still, would be really nice for at least Multicrew to have something, but Also, after skimming million fucking lines of dump data, at the very end there was mentions of player EVA, but it's also prefaced with livery, meaning skins. Oh, if only you know, you could do EVA and maybe, I don't know, maybe even fix your ship, especially the power plant and the cockpit canopy if they're broken. Cause to this day, these are the only 2 things that once broken you can't fix by yourself. But I know, it probably would be really hard to code, right? But anyways, that's all the time I got to check up on the stuff. There's probably a few more things that I missed or didn't really go into, like the Thargoid Banshee, but whatever. Is that in the game? Anyways, in the grand scheme of things, there aren't that many interesting things. Sure, base building is probably the thing that's coming. Mammoth is seemingly very new addition as well. And of course, Rhino has been there before, or rather, along with Scorpion. So who knows when that's gonna come. Either which case, I'm curious, sure. But when it happens, it happens. Now then, for the part of how to read the data dumps. Now, fair warning, though no one has been banned for this in any game that I know of, and rightfully shouldn't be, because all you're really doing is reading the information that the game puts on your PC's RAM, and nothing more. So technically it shouldn't even break any TOS or what it does, but who knows how petty the Frontier and any other company can be. I mean, just look at my own run-ins with them. Anyways, fair warning. Right then, step 1, open the game. Step 2, load into the main menu. That's good enough. Step 3, open Task Manager and data dump it. Step 4, using program like let's say 010, you can read this file and extract the strings. Then step 5, for example, that program, press search, find strings, and that'll take a while. Now that you have a list of strings that are potentially something readable, go down, right-click and export to CSV file and save. And using something like Notepad, you can extrapolate all the information you need. Now, back in the day when Odyssey released, I spotted a fellow content creator examine Elite's frame rendering and how fucked and non-existent optimization back then was for the game. Even today, you can see an incomplete culling, failed LOD, and other issues with the Odyssey. So yes, even today, I can fucking prove that Odyssey is not really optimized properly. It's just made good enough for the fanboys to stop whining. Anyways, if you want to delve into how a game generates a frame and examine things in a more greater detail, I've personally been using RenderDoc to, and I emphasize this word, inject into Elite Dangerous to examine its frame rendering, because all the other options just don't work. So program injection is required for a certain specific games rather than launching it with parameters. Anyways, moving on. There is also NVIDIA Nsight and Intel Graphics Analyzer that could do the same work. If one game doesn't work with it, the other ones probably will. All these tools really do is help us properly examine the product's quality, and hopefully by me sharing the process and tools, you, my dear viewer, could find something even I couldn't. And maybe do a little bit better work in analyzing, I suppose. So here's to you. Good luck, enjoy, and, well, try it out yourselves. It's really interesting to see behind the curtain oftentimes. At least for me it is. Oh, and one more final thing. Elite Dangerous generates planet tech on GPU, as you should. So, if you, like me, like overclocking, and have a specific GPU, by going a bit too high on overclocking, but still remaining stable, you could produce minor miscalculations and cause the surface to spaz out like this. And since the planet Mesh is also the collider model, these are actual physical objects and will cause damage. This serves absolutely no purpose other than being super funny and to just play around. Oh, and also this kind of shows that old Plantech was far more interesting because it glitches far more if you're playing on legacy mode. So this concludes the Leaky bits, tools, and the know-how how to do everything and replicate it. So bookmark the video, and for later days, who knows, maybe you'll be the one who carries on the torch of looking behind the scenes. But that aside, I got an email, so if you actually data mined, extracted, and otherwise obtained some data that you want to go public, well, I have always guaranteed anonymity. And as usual, these types of investigations could not happen without you, my patrons and YouTube members. I don't need to appease some developers or their petty PR departments just not to be excluded for some special access. I'm beholden to you guys. So, thank you. And if you haven't checked out the Patreon, well, there's a free follow option as well. Still, I greatly appreciate everyone who tosses a buck or two for my efforts. So check the links down below. For now though, that's about it. Oh, and remember, data dumping is not hacking, or even really data mining. It's just reading your own machine's RAM.